on and so on and so forth. So it's about choices. You will always have to make choices. But when you make a choice, be ready to accept the consequences, because that's the way life is. Be okay with it. So that's it. And then of course, in the time that you have to, if you have to take any time off, for example, you should use that time off as productively as possible. So those are my experiences. Of course, they are very particular to me. You asked for my experiences, and that's what I'm sharing. It may not be the same for everyone. So I guess it's just to say, make your choices, be comfortable with them, and take any time off, for example, do it and make the best of it, and just continue to put in your best. Recognize that sometimes you have to work twice as hard as everybody else, do twice as much before someone can even say, oh, I should really try it though. Meanwhile, you really worked, you worked your butt off. So that's where I would like to leave it for now.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. There's also a question from YouTube live stream, and she says some women are known to have very difficult time of the month. Does the industry respect that time, or they expect them to behave normally?
So if you have a medical condition, right, that makes that time of the month very difficult, then it's a medical condition. Of course, the oil industry understands it's like saying there are some people that have disabilities, for example, and they work in the oil industry, and they work successfully. Now, there are things that you can do to help to alleviate that. But if you have a medical condition, that means that every month you have to be away for 3 to 5 days, or however long as it is. Get that condition checked out and get it in there as this is something that you have to work with. This is something that the company has to work for. If you are lucky and you have an understanding boss and you have an understanding company, then it's something that can be taken in. Again, if unfortunately for you, the company says that overall your output is less because of those time off that you've taken, just know that when you come back, you have to do everything in your power to make up for that lost time. So that's it. It makes you a little bit more. You have to be a little more strategic about how you work, what to do, and how you go about it. But sometimes it's better to be as transparent as possible, such that everybody knows this is what you are struggling with. But when you come back, you have to come back times 100 almost. You have to come back with a renewed zeal and really, really put your foot to the accelerator and let your output talk for you from that perspective. They shouldn't miss you when you are gone for the 3 or 5 days or 5 or 7 days that you're away. But that's a lot of time for you to take out from work every month. So it's just, what do you do when you are back? You have to be able to prove your worth in being there. Yeah. So I'm seeing a question here from the Zoom chat. I'll just go ahead and read it out. It says, women should be allowed to make choices. Is it possible that some of their choices are based on society's biases? And maybe we should try to advise them when we see need. So yes, there are certain things that society expects of women. So they expect, of course, by the time you're getting to your 30s and you're not married, I mean, nobody will tell you. Everybody in your family will be asking you questions. But like I said, look within yourself and say, is this what I want for myself? And there are many people I know that say, I don't want to get married. It's not for me. It's not on my cards. But if that's what your choice is, then that's what your choice is. And understand that, you are going to face stiff resistance to it. But stand your ground. It's not what is right for me. It's not what's right for me. Nobody should be able to. As you grow up, I mean, as you grow older, you begin to make your own choices. Even me, I have 2 children. You know how many people say, "Oh, you should have 3." I'm just like, how is that up to? Oh, you should have 3. Or you should have 4. You should have a girl. Why do you only have 2 boys? You should have a girl. I'm like, okay. So what I'm trying to make here is, don't listen to don't be swayed too much by all these things. Make your decisions for yourself and be ready to face the consequences of it. Okay, is it possible to start up in the managerial aspect of the oil industry with a technical background with few management and business certifications? Nothing is impossible, that's the truth. But I find out that if it's okay, let's start from the international companies. you know what? Even in the Nigerian companies, I think it's the same thing. Managerial positions are typically given to people that have some sort of experience. So it's difficult to come in from outside and to come in from just with certifications and become a manager, a real manager for that matter. You understand? And that's because the oil and gas industry, when you're a manager in the oil and gas industry, you have a lot of responsibilities. Some of them are tied to billions of dollars worth of investments and so on and so forth. So it's unlikely. It's not, I'm not saying it's impossible, because sometimes some people become managers if they have the right background. For example, if you've maybe you have some strategic I don't want to say connections, but that's the only word that comes into my mind. But if you have some strategic partnerships coming into a role, then they can give you a managerial role, because those strategic partnerships will help you to be successful. But in terms of just having certifications, and say, okay, I'm certified in this, this, and this, it's I don't know. It's possible. It's possible, but not likely. I'll leave it at that, because at the end of the day, many things, you can learn a lot of things by certifications and degrees and PhDs and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, what really counts is experience. What have you done? What have you achieved? So that goes back to even writing your CV. When you want to write your CV sometimes, and I know as entry level students, it's difficult to to put anything, which is fine. That's what's expected as a graduate. So what you are being judged upon is what you've done as a university graduate. But as you go a bit older in the system, the question is always, what have you done? What was the impact of what you did? So I'm not saying it's impossible, um, but the vast majority would ask for experience. So there's another one. It says, how does the already established Women in Energy Bodies programs facilitate the employment of budding young female engineers? What role do they play in nourishing equal opportunities in recruitment? Okay, so so let's also take a step back. The Women in Energy associations, as we have them, are really very new. So, like I mentioned, I've worked in the oil industry 20 years, so thereabout. But it's only now, maybe in the last 5 years max, that I've seen, you know, a growth of these Women in Energy Nigeria network, women in this and women in that networks. Even SP International, when did the Women in Energy International even start up? I think in the last few years, just in the last few years here. So let's be clear that right now we are just in a place of creating awareness, equipping women, um, making it okay for women to be in the oil industry, becoming advocates for women. But in terms of saying a body like this influences the way a Shell or an ExxonMobil or so on and so forth recruits, then it's yet to be seen. So what we do is that we create the awareness, we put the information out there, we raise awareness on these systemic biases and all that, and then we ensure that there is a platform by which women can be seen, can be heard, and can be showcased, where you can showcase their talent and their skills. And I believe that in the near future, companies will begin to come to this kind of bodies to say, okay, where are your women safe? Let's even see these women that you are talking about. Let's even see. So it just started not too long ago. But you are lucky from perspective of that you guys are just starting off. So as you are coming in, you will begin to see it ramping up in the next few years. Okay, so there's a question there about the broken rung and the glass ceiling, and I'll share the slides so you can always go look for it. The entire report is online as well. I'll share it as well after the session. But the glass ceiling is just, there are systemic barriers. And I hate to use this example, but it's a bit like racism. There are some things some places you go to and you just find that there's blockage. You may never understand why are they not seeing me as I really am, as a competent person as I am. So sometimes it's a mental block. It can be a systemic bias, it can be a bias, it can be a barrier, it can be just, something that is in system that just prevents you from rising up to top leadership. People just don't see you as a leader, for example, even though you have all the qualifications and you have the experience. Like, well, we don't really see you as a leader. What's that? That's maybe a bias that someone, the people in power have against women, So that's what's called the glass ceiling. You can't go up. The broken rung is, so if you look at the ladder there behind there, so imagine if you're trying to climb up to the top of this ladder here, and then the first rung, the first step there is broken, and the first few steps are broken. It will make it more difficult for you to climb up if you don't have the foundational experience. So I talked just now about experience. So by the time you're becoming a CEO or a manager or a VP or whatever, there's some experiences that you're expected to have at that level. So maybe after 15, 20 years or 20 years in the oil industry, some kind of experience that they expect you to have to become a good leader. If they didn't give you those experiences coming in, how then will you have that experience? If you don't get that experience coming in, how are you going to become competitive? Because everything now is about competition. It's about who is the best, who's going to be the best at something. So if you don't get those experience, if the companies that you work for are not deliberate in saying, we expect that this person has the capacity to become a manager, to become a VP or a CEO. So let us ensure that she has the experience to be able to be successful then. So you start planting the seeds from now for someone's future. And even you as a woman as well, if you want to become a CEO, a VP, or you want to really become successful, ask yourself, what do I need? Your degree is only the first thing. There's experience that's required, there's certification. Someone talks about certification, there are all kinds of things that are required. So try and give yourself the opportunity to be able to do that. Volunteering for SPE, for example, is one of the ways I prove to myself and my company that I can influence without authority. That's something called influencing without authority. So I'm the chair of the biggest section in Nigeria, in Africa, as a matter of fact, and I've got maybe 25 people on the same board. How do you move the board to be able to churn out all these activities and to be able to do a budget and to get people to work together as a team and so on and so forth? So that's a way of proving that you have the skills, right? So I'm just saying, I'm using that as an example to say, even in the thing, so don't wait for your company to always give you some skills and some experiences. You can also generate them yourself by saying, I did this, I volunteered for this, I did this, and this was the impact of what I did. So that's it again. And I will put the information out there so you can read more about it. So the question here I'm seeing says, so free online courses on the smart career goals. Can you please help me with that? So in terms of smart is just an acronym that's just a measurable, achievable, time bound, and so on. So it's just a way for you to determine your goals. So okay, I'll make a note of that, and I will look for any online resources where that can help you make smart goals. But there is a number of online courses, and if you are also a member of SPE, there was a long list of links that I think we shared it some time ago, where you can get some online courses. So I can ask for that to be reshared with I think there's a WhatsApp group or some other group. I'll ask for that to be shared, or maybe I'll put it, if I can find it now, I'll put it in my slides. But essentially, especially now, there's so many free online courses. I mean, Udemy is doing some, even LinkedIn has some, and so on and so forth. If you even Google free online courses, I'm sure you get a long list of online courses that can help. Okay. What are the employability skills you'd advise one to have to give an edge in the industry? When you're coming into the industry, there are two things. There are your technical skills and there are your soft skills. In terms of technical skills, that's what your degree is about, which is you have a first class, you have a second class upper, you have a very strong degree in a course that is in high demand in the oil industry, the sciences, the engineering, and so on and so forth. That is always what is going to set you apart. But yes, even in that category of people, the number is still a lot. But we're getting to a point now where even as a graduate, there are many things that you are expected to be able to do and talk about. So even your volunteerism, for example, helps because that shows that you're a team player. It shows that you're someone that people are reliable. You have soft skills. You've got leadership skills. You've got entrepreneurial skills. Those are things that are still very much in demand. Of course, these days, data science skills are very much in demand. Software skills. You're able to write programs and write and all those sort of things. Those are also very much in demand. So that's it. Many companies are slightly different the way they do theirs. Some like to use what's it called IQ tests, for example. They like to do all kinds of tests. Others will say, do a video and let's see your creativity and so on and so forth. So it's a very broad question you ask, and it's not just one answer. It's the number of things you can do. Okay. Are there any more questions, Tosin? I think we've answered all the ones we see in the chat box. I'm coming up to 1 o'clock.
Okay, so thank you for. Okay, so I have this question. So
Go ahead, please.
regarding the current pandemic that has caused a whole lot of jobs to be lost in almost every industry, including British Petroleum. So what advice would you give to young female engineers to just brace themselves up for the life after all of this?
So it goes back to what I said in the other slide, which when I said you should know what's going on in the industry around you. So British Petroleum is letting go of a number of staff. Some other companies are saying, we will still hold on to our staff for as long as we can. So it doesn't mean that those companies are still not going to lay off staff. My company, the company that I've worked for example, has laid off staff every year for the last maybe 10 years. So, it's a reality of the oil industry, boom and bust. They call it the boom and the bust cycle, which is once the oil price drops, the next thing is for people to start to lose jobs and all that. Um, so it doesn't mean that there's no hope, and it doesn't mean that, and even because even at that, and I will be very clear here, even when there are people are losing jobs, let's be clear that people are getting jobs as well. So they're also still recruiting because they understand that recruitment is still the pipeline that's going to fuel the future. So even if we can't, take a number of people now, maybe they would let go of, 100 people, they will still recruit 5, 10, 15, 20 people. You understand what I mean? So that's still, so it's still a net negative, but recruitment is still going on. So let's be clear about that. That in terms of coming into the oil industry, hope is not lost, regardless of whether they are letting go or not. There's still hope. In terms of COVID, this particular year is very peculiar. And you ask a question, how do we know how it's going to be? I don't know how it's going to be because really and truly there hasn't been any example like this. If it was the normal boom and bust cycle, I could say, okay, well, don't worry, give it a year, give it 2 years, and then things will return back to normal. In this particular situation, nobody really knows. Now, what should you do now to make yourself, should I say, to give yourself an edge once things stabilize? So let's even assume today comes, let's say tomorrow we all wake up, coronavirus is completely gone, oil price has gone back to $70 per barrel, projects are going on, how do you want to show up? And it goes back to just saying whatever you are doing, do it with all the passion and all that. You have to set yourself up for success. So all these training courses I talk about, they are all free. Nothing is stopping you from signing on to them and doing as many of them as possible. Um, there, there's you can start your postgraduate degree right now. If everybody's online now anyway, so then if you can start up with that, do courses, learn, volunteer, spend your time trying to be as productive as possible, because those things are like seeds, right? They don't look like much in themselves until they are put in a situation where it becomes important, and then everything um, just explodes like that. Over to you, Tosin.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for that response. So also you mentioned something about benchmarking internationally. So I would like you to just maybe just explain more on that because I believe a lot of people may not understand what you meant.
By benchmarking yourself.
Yes.
Okay, so it's like and all the information that you require is online. So when you look at a graduate from look at yourself, for example, and then you look at a graduate from any, maybe take a graduate from other university. You can do that by the information there is online. Go to their websites or do a search for it, or even like I said, go to SP International. Um, the students, there's several chapters that send in their reports, um, or papers. Students that write papers and win best paper and so on and so forth, and then benchmark yourself. So imagine if I was hiring and then I saw two students who were both maybe second class upper or first class upper, and then one of them has written maybe two papers and published them in SP International, and one of the papers won best paper, for example, and the other did not. Who do you think I'm going to hire? Just by virtue of just looking plainly at academic excellence. Because that's what, as a graduate, that's what you are benchmarked. That's what you are being judged for. One of them has, even as much as the person has a second class upper or 2-1, has person has a 2-1 or a first class, the person has also been a volunteer. They've also, and I know many students like this. Don't get me wrong. They started an NGO. They taught students. They set up a company, the small company where they were doing some small bread and butter, selling of something or the other. But nevertheless, it means they were able to manage a budget, do advertising, manage customers, have a customer facing whatever, and so on and so forth. They still had very good grades in university. They still wrote a paper. They presented it in this conference. They, if they won, they won. They didn't win, they didn't win. But at least they've written 2 or 3 papers about their work. And so if I Google the person's name, you say, oh, the person did this, the person did that. I mean, it just shows a profile of a person who is really on 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 a path, on a career path. So that's what I mean by benchmarking. And I'm not saying that you should compare yourself to everybody or something. It's by way of encouragement to say, okay, what else can I do? There's some people that are just exceptional. Trust me. I mean, I'm not going to compare myself to Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, some people are just exceptional like that. But what can you yourself do to give yourself a fighting chance, a better chance? And there are many things that you can actually do, and these things are not that difficult. So that's what I mean by benchmarking. Look at people out there, and then do your own best. Do the one that you can do, and then make yourself as marketable as possible. So that's what I mean by benchmarking. It's like comparing. That's what benchmarking means.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Okay, so also in the light of preparing oneself for the challenges and leadership opportunities in Nigeria's energy industry, uh, how important do you view the job experiences that we acquire to that goal? When I mean job experiences, I'm referring to uh, volunteering and taking up small jobs during periods like this. How necessary
Mhm.
do you think that is to our aspiring?
Extremely necessary. Extremely necessary. And again, for my own personal experience, I find that there's no knowledge that is wasted, and sometimes you may not get the dream job that. And that's what when I talk about choices, you may not get the dream job that you want. We say, oh, can you have it all? Yes, you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time. You can't have it all at once. So there are times where you have to take a job that may not be what you really wanted at the time, but that's what you could get, and then you make the best of it. So if anybody comes to me now to say, well, I have an opportunity to work at a shop, for example, I'll say take what you have for now, take it, and then make the best of it. It may not be the best, and you may find out that you do only spend a few months there or years there, or whatever. But the point is, I know many people. I know somebody, for example, she's a geologist as well. She has a PhD, but she also started running her agricultural business, and then she started with a farm, and eventually, she has a PhD. She's still looking for jobs every day, but eventually she was able to make a comfortable living, so she's not under pressure. So if she does get a job, then she gets a job, but at least there's no knowledge that is wasted. I know someone who also even joined Shell, and she was running her mother's business for the longest time. It was a real estate business, and I think they also sold some things. She ran her mother's business for the longest time. So by the time she was even applying to Shell as an engineer, she was able to say, yes, I've run a business. I know what, profit and loss is about. I know what free cash flow is about. I know what customers want, and so on and so forth. So while you're waiting for the big companies to call you, it also, all of it feeds into your experience. And there are ways that you can, of course, you write it up in a way that shows what the impact of what your experience has been. So I would encourage anyone to say, if you do have any business opportunity, any entrepreneurial skills, or any, so what you call a small job or side hustle, do it. Why not? This is the time to do it. So it does have a very good impact. It has a very, very good impact, and it does help when eventually the time comes for you to go for that interview or to write that assessment. Just keep on being focused on what it is that you want. If it is that you want to work in. I know people that left banking and came to Shell, for example. People that left, and I know somebody worked for MTN for many years and then came to work for Shell. So all those things, they lead up. I know I have my cousin, for example, worked for Glue, and again, it was Glue customer service. It wasn't like as an engineer, by the way. And then she eventually got a job with one of the other IOCs. So it happens. There's nothing that says you must wait until you get that dream job before you start working. Start first, and then decide when the time comes. Continue looking, continue pushing, continue excelling, and then they themselves will come and look for you when that time comes.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, so another question.
Okay.
Okay, yes. So after as young engineering students or uh, geoscience or as a young geoscience student, would you
Mhm.
advise a recent graduate from school to rather chase um, voluntary opportunities or postgraduate studies, or he should start up looking for jobs to like better fill up his job experiences? Should he go? Should he focus on building himself or chasing postgraduate studies, masters, or he should start getting jobs so that he or she can start piling up he or her CV? Which approach do you suggest?
So that's a very nuanced question, and it goes back to making your own choices for yourself and looking. And it's not either or, it's and. Let's start off with that. You can start off an online masters, for example. Many schools do that. While you are doing that, you are pursuing, and again, you are pursuing volunteerism you do in your spare time anyway. So you can be pursuing a volunteerism job. You can also be looking for your full-time job while you are doing your MSc or your PhD or whatever. It's not or, it's and. Especially in this situation that you have now, it's and. You only get one shot. You may not have that many opportunities. So you don't want to say, I'm gonna stay here. You just fold your hands and say, I'm gonna stay here. I'm just gonna focus on my masters, and when I finish my masters, I'm going to, or I'm just going to be doing only volunteerism because I want to boost my CV. Then maybe a master's opportunity comes up, and then you're like, no, 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 don't worry, I'm doing my volunteerism for the moment. That that's a missed opportunity there. You can be doing your masters, but doing your volunteerism, and volunteerism is not it's not a full-time job. That's what they call it, volunteerism, that you do from time to time when you have some time. You put in some hours here and there, and so forth, right? So it's not all, it's and. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
Right? Nothing
I'm
stops
saying.
you. There are some of my mentees that have also advised, and one of them that's exactly what she did. While she was doing her NYSC, she was teaching in a school. She was writing exams for MSc, and then eventually she got an MSc program. She started the MSc. She continued volunteerism. When she finished, she said, "Oh, job wasn't coming, so she took a PhD. But the PhD, unfortunately for her, luckily for her, the PhD paid some stipend to her that she was able to work with. She continued working with PhD while she was doing that, and so on and so. So it's and, it's not all. Attempt to all questions as much as you can until one of them shows a breakthrough. You can be doing your master and then someone says, "Oh, actually, you know, we want you to, yeah, and something can come up. We want you to do this and then do that, and then, oh, there's a research here that we want you to do, and then that pushes you into the academic realm. And that's not, there's nothing wrong with that. While you're in your academic realm, and that opportunity comes up for you to get a job somewhere else, you move into that, you do your, so it's and it's not all. You do as much as you can when you can. So that's my advice to anybody, both male and female.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Okay, so my next question now is, I'm a little bit concerned about the oil and gas industry, uh, because there's almost every company is talking about switching to renewables, how we can rather be environmentally concerned. So for young or aspiring oil and gas practitioners, what is your view concerning this care or this fear that is running through the minds of we students, that there may be no jobs for us after school, or there may be no opportunities for us to do what we want?
So you're talking about the perspective of, is it because of the COVID now or the environmental impact of all these things we're talking about?
Environmental impacts, to be exact.
Okay, okay, okay. So first of all, many of these, in fact, I think the major oil companies in globally are all looking to clean up their um
For us.
what's it called, their carbon footprint. So in terms of, and many companies, I think even Shell has a full department that's it's on renewables and cleaner energy and so on and so forth. There's even a company called All On, All On, that invests in renewable energy in Nigeria there. So there are many companies, even backed by oil companies, that are talking about renewables. So let's be clear that, number one, even these companies they are saying they are doing as much as they can to clean up their act, right? That's the first thing. And even within the oil industry, there are ways of doing that. So that's the first thing. So the second thing is that the race towards renewable is not run equally by all countries. So in a country like Canada, for example, where once you just say you're in the oil and gas industry, they almost look at you like, you're a terrible person because you are polluting and so on and so forth. And that's because of the nature of the way oil is being explored in Canada. But in a country like Nigeria, we are still going to be um, be using fossil fuels for some time to come. And that's because we are still a little bit behind in our development relative to other countries. So let's be clear that there may be smaller opportunities in other countries, but other countries are still going to continue to demand it for a very long time. And even at that, the same oil companies are doing everything that they can to go for more cleaner energy. In fact, I think that's Shell's mission now, is more and cleaner energy or something to that effect. So companies, oil companies recognize that as an existential threat, or rather an existential opportunity. So going forward, there will be other opportunities. And it doesn't mean that you as a chemical engineer, as a production petroleum engineer, or whatever, are not going to have a future. This thing we're talking about is still 20, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50 years in the future. It's still, because it's not, it may not rather be as quick as we think. So don't think, and that's, I mentioned it earlier, that you can't stay where you are, stay where you are now as a graduate and say, oh, I don't think there's going to be a future for me, so I'm not going to even try. That doesn't make any sense. Continue. When you get to that bridge, you cross it. When you get to that opportunity, you cross it. And it doesn't mean that all the oil companies in the world are just going to stop producing one day. It doesn't happen like that. It's whatever it is, it's going to be something that will take place gradually and over time. And every situation, there are always opportunities. So even as we're talking about, well, as a chemical engineer, you may not find that many chemical engineering or petroleum engineering. There are not many petroleum engineering jobs. There may not be, but there are data science jobs. I started out as I graduated from geology, but the first job that I got with Halliburton was as a software consultant. So I was writing software. I was supplying software for Halliburton to geologists in other in companies. So it was important for me to understand how to write software, how to write code, how to correct code, how to install, how to upgrade, how to build a computer from scratch, and make sure that the network is connected and so on and so forth. If you're interpreting a fault, I as a geologist would know what a fault looks like. So if it comes out wrongly, I know it's wrong because of my background as a geologist. But everything I was doing there was based on software. So even with your petroleum engineering degree, in a world where maybe oil is less attractive, there will still be opportunities. So it's like when computers came on, there were people that used to be typists, and they would just I don't know, of course, maybe you guys may not know, but there were places where, or business centers, for example. When you guys, I don't know if any of you remember, there used to be business centers where if you want to go and check your email, you go there. If you want to print, you go there. If you want to do anything, you go there. But where are they now? They've become extinct, but they've all evolved into other things. So people have the capability in their pockets. And bearing in mind, there used to be people who their job was typist. So you take your project to them, they just type those big typewriters, and they will now bind it into those big binders. And then they eventually moved into using computers. Those people had to learn how to use computers. They had to leverage the skills that they already had to become more effective using computers. And now, we've even evolved again now to doing other things. So don't look at it from that perspective of, oh, there's not going to be any, so I'm just going to, maybe I'm worried and therefore I'm not going to do anything about it. What are you doing about it? Do something about it. There are always opportunities behind every challenge. So that would be my advice.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have any other question from the chat box? No.
So how significant could a master's degree go in giving you that edge? Many companies now would say they want a minimum of a master's degree, and so from that perspective, if you don't have one, you are excuse me, you're automatically screened out. Some companies will say your BSc is good enough. So yeah, it depends. Again, like I said, it depends. It's good to have so that you give yourself a better opportunity, right? But if you get a job, for example, if you get a job, a good job that's relevant to your skills, and then you get a master's, for example, I would say take a job first, and then you can do your master's alongside it. Maybe you can do like a part-time program, do a master's alongside it, or do your master's a little bit after you have some experience. Or if you don't have any other opportunity, I did my master's years after I had started working because I was lucky enough to get opportunities to work first. So I got the job first, and then I did my master's later. But if I also had it the other way too, it could have also have worked out. So it just depends on your personal circumstance. But many companies now will tell you minimum of master's degree. Some of them will tell you if you don't have a master's degree, you have to have experience. So either a master's degree and 5 years experience, or no master's degree and experience. If you have the opportunity to get it and get it out of the way, and then move on from there. So I think
Okay. Yes, this is 124 already. I believe uh, we have exhausted all the questions we have, and you have done really well to enlighten us as regards how women can better prepare themselves for the challenges and leadership opportunities or positions in Nigeria's energy industry. So at this point, I'd like you to just give us your closing notes, closing remarks, closing advice, then we'll just end the session.
okay. Um, all right. So thank you very much for this opportunity again. Thank you for inviting me to give you some nuggets based on my experience. And I say it again here that it's based on my experience. So I've had some experience, but all the advice that I've given here, and I'm hoping that there are also some men in the audience as well. But the advice I've given here is advice I would give to my male mentees and advice I would give to my female mentees. The only difference here is that for female mentees, I always say that you're going to have some extra challenges, which maybe your male colleagues may not have. So that's where a session like this actually helps. It helps you to know, and to also to know that some things may not come as easy, and there are choices to be made. And indeed, you are going to be treated differently from it. And that's not wrong. Sometimes it's also even with the best intentions, but it's just to put yourself out there in a way that gives you an advantage. And I'm not saying an advantage over the men. Let's be clear here. An advantage over your peers, which is how best to position yourself for yourself. What's the best here? Because men and women are different. It doesn't mean that we're in competition. We are not. We are separate but equal, kind of. And that's the way we should look at it. So from that perspective, my advice would be, while you can, make hay while the sun shines. Mrs. Shea Afolabi said it very well during one of our women energy sessions with Lagos section, where she said, use whatever time you have to put wood in your fire, which is, you gather things together to make that fire burn. It's what a bird eats that it flies with. So that's a parables I'm putting on the table here. So put as much investment into yourself as possible, because at the end of the day, no knowledge is wasted, really. And at the end of the day, it just makes you better. Don't expect any special treatment, but always just look out for the opportunities and do the best that you can. You would have to work extremely hard, and that goes for men and for women. But for women especially, even when you do work hard, sometimes your work is also not recognized the same way. So it's up to you to speak about yourself, be able to speak about your competence, be able to speak about what you have done. And you have the platform, you have the online platforms, you have the all manner of platforms to talk about yourself, your achievements, and so on and so forth. I have colleagues who say, oh, my work will speak for me. That was the conventional wisdom some years ago. My work will speak for me. But your work does not have mouth. Only you have a mouth. So you are the one that's going to speak about your work, speak about your achievements, speak about what you've done in a way that makes it clear that you're on a mission and you have a target for yourself. Set your targets, and good luck. You may, like I said, you may be in a situation where you don't even experience any of these things I've talked about, and that will be fantastic. And I'm hoping, that's actually my hope, that you start in a career that you love, and you join a company that you love and that respects you and your talents, and the work that the rest of us women in energy and co are doing would provide a platform for you to step on. You step on the shoulders of people who are ahead of you, and then, oh, bless you. And then you essentially you just continue to build on it. So please, all the cat fighting and infighting between women needs to stop. Can't work with women needs to stop. Women bosses are wicked needs to stop. We need to stop it. Stop it. It doesn't help at all. Those narratives don't help us at all. They actually make us look a lot worse. Whether it's true or not is not the issue. Just recognize that there are good bosses and there are bad bosses. And some bad bosses sometimes may be female. Some bad bosses sometimes may be male. It doesn't mean that one bad boss that you have that is a female, that means that all the bosses in the world that are women are bad. No. So all those things, we need to put them aside. That whole narrative about women can't work together needs to stop. You need to, band together, work together. You may not have to always like each other sometimes, but at least respect each other and treat each other with respect, no matter what it is. Everybody is different. My challenges are not going to be your challenges. My experience is not going to be your experience. My choices are not your choices. So don't criticize another woman's choice. Don't criticize her if she says, if for any decision that she's made. This world is too big for there to be only one way of doing something. There are so many different ways of doing things. So those are the most important things I want to leave on the table here. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and looking forward to others in the future. Thank you. Over to you, Tosin.
Yes, thank you very much, Mrs. Effiom.
I'll,
Okay.
I'll come in here. Chair, thanks a lot for all you've shared with us. I've been on and off, but I would say I was here for over 80% of the session. It was quite enlightening, eye-opening. and it's good to know that we could actually let women take the lead. Women are taking the lead in today's environment, which is a very, very good one. So I really appreciate Tosin for putting this together and giving us this platform to be able to hear from the Lagos section chair on this very touching subject. Thanks again.
Thank you, Fred. Thanks for joining as well.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
Tosin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Fred, for that. I really appreciate. So on behalf of Unilag SP Student Chapter, I say a big thank you to Mrs. Effiom for taking out her time to just share our views with us. We really appreciate that. And at this point, I would like to say goodbye to everyone. I really hope we all learned a couple of things in this session. See you guys in our second session. I'll be starting in 30 minutes for the soft skills class. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye.